Hey Jay, how's it going? Taking a look at this more in depth than what we did in class here. So let us take a look. All right, this is all cool. I like her entering in. Like I said, I want to see some good like sneak mechanics, good wall crawl mechanics. Have her peek here, and then she's got to like peek as little as possible. Maybe like this is as far as she should go. Maybe this is your extreme on the peak, something like this. I don't know. And then I want her to like really move back quickly. Like once she sees the guard, she has to be like, oh crap, and move back into space quicker, right? So this is taking way too long. So I want her to like jump back into place. So it's like a slow creep the corner, right? And then like really quick. And what's nice is that that gives you a nice contrast and timing. It makes it more appealing and entertaining to watch. You know what I mean? And it lets us know how she feels about seeing someone there, right? Again, we're going to need, like I was talking about in class, we're going to need more poses for this person, whatever they're doing. Obviously, they can't be staring with their gun out, anticipating that she's going to be there. They need to be doing their own thing, like their own patrol. Maybe they're looking this way. You know, this could be a fun place if you wind up with time to add in stuff. You know, there could be even someone like here with their arms on this thing, you know, chatting. I'm not encouraging you to add another character unless we like get to a really great place where they're done, but then this person's like, yeah, I know what you mean. That's like, it's really crazy what's been going on here with all these people intruding in here and killing everybody. That kind of thing. You know what I mean? So maybe this is their weapon that they're holding. That there's some kind of situation or something kind of entertaining or interesting going on over in this part here that it's not, you know, we're going to have to animate, figure out what this little story is and animate it. Maybe it's just the guard kind of like walking back and forth, or I think we had talked about maybe the guard was like, you know, maybe a little bit bored here, you know. Like kind of like checking out their socials or something. I don't know. What do guards do? What do the NPCs do when nobody's watching? That is your fun question to answer. You know, they still have to have their weapon and stuff. Maybe it's like slung over their shoulder. It has to be visible to the audience that they have a weapon so that we know it's a guard, so that we know that this isn't just a civilian hanging out waiting for a buddy to go to dinner or something, right? So we need to make sure to set that kind of thing, but we're going to have to do something. Can't just have them in a single pose. Okay, so she creeps out. We see whatever's going on with that guard, and she pops back here. And now, as an audience, we kind of understand the situation. So you have this slow camera push in here, right? But I think this part probably needs work. If this is going to be a cut, right? So we're talking about our main heroine here popping out and jumping back quickly, right? And so we need to see this thought process with this main character happening, right? Where she's like, okay, there's a guard there. What do I do about it, right? I want to see your character thinking these thoughts, right? So we need to do that through acting, through pantomime. It doesn't have to be like over the top, but it can't just be like them doing things like they're like it's just a programming, right? So they're like, okay, guard, what am I going to do? Maybe they look down to their belt, right? And that's when we see this hand then come up. And this has to be a sequence, right? It can't just be all at once. So we need to see a beat of them thinking. We need to see a beat of this arm coming up, kind of like directing the audience's attention, like what are they doing? And then we need to see this arm like go behind their backside, presumably to a belt or some kind of equipment. A thing that holds equipment, right? And I don't think we need to model it or show it exactly, but we need to communicate all this to the audience of like, what is happening? What do we expect? What can I expect to happen as an audience member? Because the fun of a story is not to watch things happening, but to anticipate things happening and being surprised when they like happen differently. So, you know, when she reaches into her belt, her torso would have to like lean over to the left here to like kind of support all of this motion. Maybe, you know, the gun gets a little bit more relaxed, so like it's more like pointing straight down because that's not what she's going for here. I'll switch colors for her second head pose. Something like this, right? We gotta tell the story of going into the belt, not just have the arm do it without anything else supporting it. That's what I'm trying to get at. Right, so we want to see a change in the body, a change in this arm, a change in focus. So we're telling the audience like, what's up? All right, so then we get to this cut, and it's almost the exact same camera angle as the first cut. And those kind of cuts don't really work, sadly, in film. It's rare to ever see them because it's just jarring for the audience. We always want a cut to be motivated and to have a reason that the cameraman would cut to something else. So I would suggest, instead of cutting and then zooming in like this and having her pull out, I think your initial instinct before was to frame in like really tight. And I don't know what this framing exactly is, so don't follow exactly what I'm drawing here, but maybe we cut in tight to like really show the audience. And maybe this is the wrong framing even, now that I think about it. Maybe we cut in even like this tight, but it's got to be tight enough where it doesn't feel like a jump cut. It doesn't feel like we're just cutting from the same thing to the same thing. So maybe we cut into something like this, right? And this is still like kind of the attitude. You know, we had her kind of leaning away in the previous one maybe, but we have to see her hand go behind her body, presumably rummaging something out from a belt. And then we need to see her come out with the canister, right? The shake 'em up, smoke 'em up special, whatever it is. We have to stage it in a way where whatever this thing is can be easily discerned by the audience, easily recognized, and not just have it be, you know, so that means once we pull it out, we may need to have like a slight little pause here, especially if there's text on it or there's some kind of complexity to it that we really want the audience to like see and understand. It has to have enough landmarks on whatever the design of this object is so the audience can sort of like instantly recognize it, you know what I mean, as it being what it is. And then it's fine to cut back to something like the framing that we had before, something similar to this framing, I would say, so that when we do the shake 'em and the throw, like here we have a camera move to follow her up, and then a camera move to follow the throw, right? And I feel like we can make this much simpler by just cutting to a camera angle that's going to encapsulate everything we needed to do. And I feel like this one does do all that stuff already. So I would repeat this camera because the audience is already like familiar with it and they're already grounded here. So yeah, that's what I would say about that. You do the shake, you do the throw, all of that planning and blocking looks nice. Maybe she doesn't need to go so far over left to go over right. I mean, from here feels great. So maybe when she shakes it up, she's more like over here in this position, just a little bit more. We can talk about this even in more detail once we kind of get the cameras all locked down and everything looking great. But yeah, if we cut back to something here where she's shaking it up, instead of being so far over here, she's like shaking it up here. So she could be much closer to this, like standing here, you know, and shaking. However your posing and everything was for that. You know what I'm saying? I don't need to draw the whole thing. I think you get the idea. So that we're not having her move so far over to the left and then have to move far back over the right. You know what I mean? I don't think this is largely going to be done with like giant moves in her cog here. You know, I think it's going to be done much more like with arm and torso with a little bit of support by the cog going this way and that way. I just think like here is just like pretty extreme. So as soon as she throws this thing, you know, we're going to want to see it like ding, 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 kind of at the feet of this guard who now is going to have a reaction to it. Like, what? That's not Instagram or whatever we're saying, whatever they were doing, and have them kind of like have an alarmed reaction, right? And we can make this more fun of a path than what I just drew, of course. You can make it go like dink, 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 dink. You know, it could do something fun. Maybe this is too far. Maybe it goes more like here. Or, you know, I can show the acorn example that I did in class, if that's going to be of any help. But it's just how to make boring things not boring. Not that this is boring, but how to make things less like regular. Everybody anticipates this can, once you throw it, to bounce, but we can make it like a really fun bounce and like have a nice rhythm and like a little nice unexpectedness to it, right? Because it's not exactly like a ball. It's a cylinder shape. So that might bounce really kooky and nutty. And then I think after the guard notices it and have a reaction, we cut, like, so this camera move, this zoom out, I don't think we need it. I think we just cut right to her turning and ducking, right? And this might be really fast, but I think this is a good opportunity for us to have her like turn to camera, kind of like close her eyes maybe, you know, like she knows what's about to happen here. She's like plastered up against the wall, tight up against the wall, trying to get away from the explosion, you know. And she could even, like, if you want, we could even like get an arm up here maybe that's too much, to like try to like shield herself from what she knows is about to come. Maybe that's not too much, maybe that's the right amount. That's for you to decide, like what kind of acting stuff you really want her to have here. But this is a pretty sloppy drawing, but hopefully the idea communicates. That's all I'm trying to do, communicate ideas. And then, yeah, we see the smoke or whatever coming out from there. We have the little camera shake, which I can help you with. And then we have her like kind of reload. Another thing to do is maybe while she's waiting for the explosion to happen is just go into the reload here. It's interesting that we're doing a reload here, the timing of it, because you would think she would want to get out there while the smoke or flashbang or whatever is still fresh, right? So maybe it makes more sense to have her like sneak up and come back here and then do the reload before we get into the grenade grab. You know, that might be cool to do here instead. Like she reloads, then she grabs out the grenade, she throws it, she covers for the explosion happens, and then she like jumps out to do the shot like the minute the explosion is over. So this is like a close-up here. So every time you cut to something like this, I'm gonna be like, why are we cutting here? What new information are we presenting to the audience here that the audience hasn't already gotten? If it's because this is the first time we've seen a close-up of her face and everything, I would maybe suggest that when she peeks the wall here and jumps back here quickly, and then we want to see that thought process about like, oh, what should I do? Oh, I know. So she could reload here. I don't know. Maybe we don't need the cut to the close-up here. I'm not really sure. Maybe you have a plan for what we're doing in this close-up. Like maybe this is when we see her be like, hey, yeah, this is awesome. This is exactly what I wanted to do. It's go time. This is the part of my job that I love the most. You know what I mean? Like, this is what I live for kind of stuff. Maybe that's what we're doing here, but I need some more info. Like, why are we cutting to this close-up? And then we zoom out again back to the same thing as she runs the corner. I would say we have her start to leave frame here if we're keeping this close-up. We have her start to move right, and then we just cut back to this familiar angle that we've seen before, instead of doing it like a zoom. I think these zooms are not adding a lot, and they're just kind of like confusing. So yeah, now we see her finally peek the corner to shoot this guard, and then like I suggested before, we add in, like here we see shooting happening, right? The guard's getting lit up, but now we need to see a close-up of the guard getting hit and like falling, dropping out of screen probably, right? They've been dispatched, they've been taken care of, and now we go back to our familiar close-up here from a different camera angle, but sort of the same framing of her being like, heck yeah, another day at the office, or whatever we're doing here, whatever kind of that acting beat is. So I think some of these shots are going to get quicker, which will give us the frames maybe to handle these last two shots. But I feel like we need all these shots to tell like a complete tale. You know what I mean? So let's work on this sneak in and getting this right, because I feel like this camera angle is one that's good, that we're going to kind of keep here. You know what I mean? And something you could do, this might actually be worth a camera move here, where if we're focused in on her sneaking in right here along the wall, I'm not trying to overcomplicate this, I swear, but it would be nice if she's sneaking, we can't see the guard yet, right? So as she's sneaking, then we start to see, and the camera's kind of like panning with her. Then we introduce the idea of a wall and her here. So then the audience is kind of with her, you know, seeing the guard along with the main character, that there is somebody here who's patrolling. Because right now when we start on the thing, the audience sees the guard. So if you want to add some camera stuff that makes this dynamic and more interesting and fun, it's just as simple, like the camera's just panning along with this character as they're like kind of sneaking through this institution. You know what I mean? Whatever this is. And they have their gun and they're doing their kind of like wall creep stuff. I mean, you know, they might just be walking in a sneaky way, and then when they see the corner coming here, that's when they start to like press flat against the wall and to kind of peep it. They peep it and they jump back. That would be a nice use of a camera move. That would give the camera, that would add something to the story, like this camera move, because then the audience identifies more with this hero, because we are learning that there's a guard there about the same time as the hero. And you know, the camera doesn't have to pan back when the hero comes back like this, because we've already established like our framing. This is a very like 50-50 framing, like half the screen almost is one thing and half is the other. Not entirely sure that is the best framing we could do. We could leave it more like on the third, where we're seeing the guard here. So our character here gets 2/3 of the screen to work with. So the camera wouldn't have to like pan and pan back when the character comes back. It would just pan over into this perspective. The audience sees that basically around the same time as that character sees it, and then we pan back, and this is kind of a familiar framing that we're going to return to, right? I can help if you need help, like laying out all these cameras and sequencing all this stuff and getting it where like the bare bones is working. I'm totally willing to help. Just send me an email, or you could send me your file. I'd rather do it with you than without you, just to like talk through all this stuff. But I think that this is also something that you could probably handle on your own. I feel pretty confident about it. I would suggest locking this stuff down. And then working on that creeping along the wall animation here. Because I think we're going to need less frames here for this action. We'll probably need less frames here for this. Maybe about the same when we're in the close-up and pull it out and show it. And then the shake and the throw. I think we'll need less frames here because all this feels a little slower than what it needs to be. Tink. So after the throw, tink, 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 tink. We cut to this guarding and the explosion. I think the explosion should happen really quickly. Like, she should jump back quickly. The explosion happens quickly. This gun reload stuff, I suggest that we move it earlier there rather than having it happen while the explosion, because I feel like we're taking a lot of excitement and steam out of ramping up the tension in this by having this business here, when I think it makes more sense to have the business. Okay, she sees the guard, she redoes her gun, you know, she has her plan, she grabs the thing and she throws. And then we finish it up with she jumps out, shoots, we see the guard die in a way that focuses on it, not here small in the distance, but actually like a medium shot of the guard getting hit and dropping. And then we need to go back to our main character to show like her reaction to the sequence of events that just played out. Obviously, I assume she's happy with how things went, so we need to kind of show that she's like, heck yeah, mission accomplished kind of thing, you know. And we could even maybe even have her like leave screen right, you know, to say the adventure continues, the journey continues. This was just a small bit in this thing, right? This isn't like the big boss that we're trying to kill. If we do want it to be the big boss, I don't know, it doesn't feel like a big boss, so it just feels like a henchman to me. So yeah. All right, hopefully that's all clear. If not, send me an email. We can have office hours. We can set up the cameras and do all that stuff together sometime, some evening during the week. But yeah, I think once we get all, like, it's coming together, it's getting nailed down. I see it, how it could come together as a complete story. And I think it's going to be really cool. I think it's going to be cool. Hopefully you like my suggestions. But if not, let's talk about them and figure out other solutions. Okay? All right. Look forward to seeing you in class. Have a good week.